Can I make my own Birkin bag? Let's find out. Hi, my name is Sarah, and welcome to my channel, which is all about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. Before I get started, I just wanted to let you know that I have my dog Penny in here with me because she's not feeling well and someone needs to keep an eye on her, and my husband is sleeping. So if you hear any weird noises, my apologies, that's her. Just try to ignore it. So I get a lot of requests from companies to do collabs, and I ignore or delete most of them. But I got an email a few months back from this company called Babylon Leather, and they wanted to send me one of their DIY leather kits. And if you've been here for a while, then you'll know that in addition to sewing and knitting and crochet and all those other textile crafts, I also enjoy collecting handbags. So this was like my worlds colliding, like my hobbies coming together, and I thought it would be really fun to try to make my own bag. So I selected the Birkin kit in the 30cm size to try out. Full disclosure, I did receive this kit for free, and I do have affiliate links down in the description box, but I did not receive any monetary compensation to do this video. So Babylon Leather is a company that sells DIY bag kits, and I think they have other things like small leather goods that you can make as well. Just so you're aware, a lot of their designs are dupes for designer handbags. That might bother some people, so I just wanted to let people know. For me, it's not an issue because they don't use the branding of the original design house, and so it's not like they're really pretending to be something that they're not. So the bag that I picked is a dupe of the Hermes Birkin bag, and I chose the 30cm size, which is kind of a medium size. And I chose black with gold hardware with black stitching because I figured that if there was any sort of wonkiness in my stitching, it wouldn't really be contrasting. If you use like a white thread or something that would really stand out. This was both a good and bad thing. I'll get into that later. So this is my finished bag, and I was able to successfully complete it, and I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. I guess spoiler alert. But in this review, I'm going to go over a little bit about the process of making this bag. Then I'll share with you what I think of it overall as a finished product, how I think of it as a handbag. I'll do a little segment on what fits inside of it. And finally, I'll round out with 3 outfits that I use to style with this bag. Just to let you know, Babylon Leather is doing a 30% off site-wide sale right now. And if you use my code, which is down in the description box, you can get an extra 5% off. Now let's talk about the bag making process. It did not go completely smoothly, but as you can see, it turned out okay in the end. So I'm going to put in a clip of all of the things that I received when I opened the kit. I had originally planned to do a little bit more footage as I went, but I did not end up doing that because of some delay issues that I am going to go over. So in the kit, they include all the pieces of the bag along with all of the tools that you need to make it. They do use top grain leather, which is supposed to be a nicer quality leather. I'm not an expert, so I can't really speak on that. I will say it definitely smells like leather, and it seems like a pretty decent quality bag. And then the directions for actually stitching the bag together are a YouTube tutorial. They give you a QR code, and you go to the tutorial and follow that in order to assemble your bag. And this particular bag that I chose, the Birkin in the 30cm size, it actually had parts 1 and parts 2 of the tutorial that you had to watch. Now, the first wrinkle that I ran into is that in the tutorial videos, they tell you that when you finish stitching and you cut your threads, you're supposed to put a little bit of glue on the ends in order to seal them. And the kit that I received did not have any glue. So, I looked for it several times and there was no glue in there. So I contacted the person who had initially offered me the kit and said there was no glue. He said that sometimes I think customs removes the glue, and so he said that it wasn't a problem. I could either use super glue or I could just melt the ends of the thread with a lighter. So that was not a big deal. I have super glue at home, so I used that instead. I didn't use a lighter because part of me was afraid I was going to scorch the bag with the fire, so it probably wouldn't have been an issue, but just to be safe, I just used super glue and that was fine. Now, as I said, I chose the black with the black thread because I figured it would hide mistakes, and that is true. But it also made it really hard to actually see what I was doing. Like sometimes I was working on this at night after dinner and I had to put on extra lights and use my reading glasses to make sure I could see what I was doing. So I think that I probably would have had an easier time if I had chosen a different color of bag with the contrast stitching. But on the other hand, it would have made mistakes more visible. So I guess in the end, I'm happy with the choice that I made. But it's just something to keep in mind in case you too are thinking about doing the black on black, that it's going to be a little bit hard to see, especially at night. So the YouTube tutorial videos, I think that they're filmed in another country in a different language. And so because of that, there's no sound at all in the video, which was a little bit jarring, but you get used to it. And then it just has subtitles. However, there was a little bit of a language barrier at times with the subtitles, but you could pretty much figure out what you were supposed to do. One major issue with the tutorials that I wish they would have clarified is that for the Birkin bag, there's actually a couple of different sizes. And so obviously the different sized bag has a different number of holes because the smaller bag has less holes and the bigger bag has more holes. So on certain parts, it'll say, like leave 3 holes at the top and start stitching on the 4th hole. Well, that apparently turned out to be for the smaller size, and I had the bigger size because at one point I was trying to stitch the side panel to the back panel. I got all the way to the end, and then I realized that my holes didn't line up, that I was one off because my bag actually had more holes than the smaller size. So I ended up having to rip out that seam and redo it, which was a little bit of a pain. And I wish that in the tutorial they would have clarified for the different sizes, like the bigger size you leave 4 holes and the smaller size you leave 3 holes, or just some sort of warning that they're not the same. Now, as a consumer, if you were making this for yourself, I would just encourage you to count the holes before you get started, just to make sure that they're lined up properly and that you're not going to have the same problem that I did. They do give you plenty of thread to complete the project, so in the end, it wasn't really a problem. It was just a little bit of a pain to have to do the whole seam and then unpick it and then do it again. The other little thing about the tutorial video that I felt could have been a little bit better is that because it's split into 2 parts, there are certain sections that they duplicate in each part and they're a little bit different. I'm assuming it's between the different sizes of the bags, but again, they don't really clarify that. So I kind of wish that they had just made separate videos, like one video for the large size and one video for the small size. But in the end, I was able to figure it out. It wasn't a big deal, but I do think that could have been a little bit more clear. Now, the next major wrinkle that I ran into is that my kit did not include piping. I wish that I would have saved some to show you, but I think I already threw it away. But there's some little like plastic tubing that goes in this part here that makes it a little bit stiffer. And my kit did not include the piping. It's listed in the directions, and I'm looking through all of the things that I received, looking for the piping. I didn't have it. I went back and watched my original unboxing video to make sure that I hadn't lost it or something. It just was not in there. So I had to communicate with the person who sent me the package again, and they were very gracious and sent it right out to me. But that did mean that there was like a week or 2 where I wasn't working on the bag because I got to the stage where I needed the piping and I didn't have it. I don't know if the person that packed up and sent my PR package is the same people that do the regular package, but just one suggestion I think would be nice is if in the box, if they included a packing list so that you knew exactly all of the materials that were supposed to be in the kit so you could verify that you had them all before you started. And I'm sure that if you did receive a kit that was missing something, you would contact the company and they would send it to you just like they did for me. But it's just another thing to keep in mind, to maybe watch the tutorial and see all the stuff that you need and then go back and make sure that you actually have all those things before you start. In the end, I did receive the piping, so I was able to successfully complete the project, but it just took a little bit longer, and I was a little bit frustrated when I had to set it aside because I had been kind of in a rhythm working on it in the evenings, and then I had to stop for a little while. The last part about the construction that was a little bit tricky for me was actually sewing this bottom part on. So every single piece of the leather is double-sided. There's like the exterior leather, and then there's like a different smoother leather on the inside. So that's 2 layers with some interfacing in between. And I didn't realize it at the time, but when I was sewing this bottom to the 4 corners, on one side, this bottom panel got separated with the 2 different layers, and I had only been stitching through the bottom layer here, but not through the top. So when I went to turn it inside out, there was like basically like a little bit of the edge here was sort of sticking up with the little holes that you could still see that you were supposed to stitch because my edges had gotten separated. So that was kind of a pain because you have to turn this inside out. Like you stitch everything right sides together and then you turn it out at the end. And turning it out is difficult because it's so structured and interfaced and it's leather, so it's a little bit hard to turn it inside out. So I ended up having to undo that and again sort of unpick this section and then redo it to make sure that I was catching all of the layers. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. Also, like some of that separation, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it in the cutaways, but I did try to film that there are some sections where the interior leather came apart from the exterior. So it's a little bit bubbly on the inside. It doesn't bother me because it looks perfect on the outside and I don't really care what the inside of my bag looks like, but it's just another thing to keep in mind. And then the very last part of the construction is you snap this hardware piece into the sangle. And I found that really, really difficult. And I was a little bit irritated because it was literally the last thing that I was doing. The holes that they give you to snap this hardware in were just a little bit too small. And I think I understand why they do that, because you do want it to be a really tight, snug fit so it's not going to come apart. But I just could not get this hardware snapped into this angle. So I ended up having to get a chopstick and kind of like working the holes a little bit to make them a little bit bigger so that I could actually snap the hardware in place. I know that sounds like a lot, but genuinely, I really did enjoy doing this project. I would typically work on it for maybe like an hour after dinner, use it as kind of my unwind time. Like normally I would do some knitting during the evenings, but instead I would work on this. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because I don't really like hand stitching, but there was just something about doing this that it was very soothing, and I would do a little bit and then stop for the night. And I really did enjoy the process of putting this bag together. Now let's move on to talking a little bit about how I feel about this as a handbag. I carried this to work for a couple of days this week, and I will admit to you, I was a little bit nervous about whether it was actually going to hold together, just because I'd never done this before and I wasn't sure how good my stitching was, and I was a little bit afraid I would be carrying it and it would just fall apart. So I'm happy to report that I did use it for a couple of days and I had quite a lot of heavy things in it, and it held up perfectly. I am going to insert a clip that shows you everything that I carried in my bag, but I do just want to add that one day I had to bring my iPad with me. I think I have just like the standard sized iPad Pro, and it did fit in the bag along with all of my other things. That did make it kind of heavy, and the bag held up beautifully. No stitches popped, like nothing came apart. So I'm really very pleased with how this bag held together, and I think it's going to last for a good long while. I do think that the look of this bag is very classy and elegant and kind of corporate-y, which is maybe not my style, but I do really like the way that it looks, and I think that it's a really good work bag. For that reason, I do think that the black with gold hardware was a good choice because it looks the most professional. A different color might be a little bit more fun or a little bit more casual and match my lifestyle better, but I am happy with my choice of going with the black. One con that I will point out is that I don't like the shoulder strap. The original Hermes Birkin bag does not come with a shoulder strap, and I totally understand why. Like, I get the convenience of having it where you can carry it on your shoulder or crossbody, but for practical purposes, I don't think that it really makes a lot of sense. It's pretty hard to get the strap into these little grommets here, and then once it's on, the strap itself is fairly thin, and so if you have any kind of weight in the bag, it's really going to dig into your shoulder. And then I'll put in some pictures that I just snapped of me wearing the bag crossbody and on the shoulder. And because of these handles, you can see like how awkward it looks and how bulky it is. I just feel like the style is meant to be a top handle bag, and I'm okay with that. I either carry it like this or I carry it on the crook of my arm. And both ways works perfectly fine. I will probably only ever use this bag as a work bag. I don't really see myself carrying it for like errands or like an all-day shopping or going out to dinner because it's just too big and bulky. I don't need this much space for that kind of activities, so for me this is really only a work bag, and therefore I'm fine with just carrying it by the handles. I took some video of what the bag looks like when it's fully closed up with the lid. I gotta tell you, I'm never ever gonna use the bag that way because it takes an eternity to actually close it up and get all of the little things in place where you have to like put these dangles on the lock and then turn the lock. It's just too much of a faff. Like, I can't imagine going to the grocery store or something and trying to pay the checkout line and trying to like open up all these things and get in my bag to get my wallet. It's just too much of a hassle. So I'll probably always just carry it like this. And then if I want the bag to be closed, I'll just cinch these little sangles more like this, and it's a little bit more closed. It's just way more convenient that way. I also just personally like the way that these dangle. I think it makes it a little bit more casual, a little bit more suited to my lifestyle. I do like that the bag has feet because that just helps protect the bag. I did test this out. I have an organizer for my Neverfull MM that I got from, well, actually I got it secondhand, but it's originally from Etsy, and it does actually fit in here, and I think I might use that organizer to help the bag keep its shape when I'm not using it. Generally, when I use a bag, I'm the kind of person that just throws everything in a black hole and just lives with it. Like, I don't really like using organizers because it adds to the weight of the bag. But just so you're aware, an organizer will fit in here. And if you're someone who likes things to be a little bit more compartmentalized, then you might like that. And also, I do like the idea of using the organizer just to help the bag keep its shape, because I do feel like this leather is probably going to get more squishy and slouchy over time. The kit did include a few accessories, which you will have already seen in the clip. I did leave the little clochette on here. It does come with a lock, and then it has like a little horse charm that's very similar to what you can get at Hermes, and then it came with a couple of twillies. I'm probably not going to use those accessories because I personally just don't really like the horse charm, and the twillies are not my colors, but I totally can decorate the bag in my own way, and you'll see in some of my styling clips the way that I actually decorated the bag to suit my own personal style. But I do think that it's nice that they do include a few accessories in the kit if you wanted to use them. So my final verdict on this is that I am really happy with this. I do really like it. It works. It hasn't fallen apart on me. I mean, I know I've only used it a couple of times, but so far it seems to be pretty durable. I admit to being kind of a snob about kits. I sort of thought of it as like a paint by numbers thing and like, oh, it's not as cool if you just follow a kit rather than making something yourself from scratch. But I have to say that after I made this and I actually carried it to work, I did have that sort of feeling of pride that like, I actually made this. I put this together with my own two hands and I just really enjoyed the process. And I think that I would enjoy doing it again in the future. Not immediately because it is a little bit hard on my hands to like pull that stitching really tight. I did get a little bit fatigued, and so it's not something that I want to do like every week, or I wouldn't want to do it as my job, but just every once in a while as like a little hobby, like making a bag like this, I think that it was really fun and I would do it again in the future. Okay, I thought I would film a quick what's in my bag video. So for today, for styling the bag, I added this leopard print silk scarf and just tied it in a little bow. And then I have my little bag charms here. But to be honest, I probably won't do this again because it's already like making the side of the bag here start to sag. So I need to come up with a different way to put on my bag charms. But anyway, that's how I have it today. And then if I open up the bag, hopefully you can kind of see what's inside here. And this is packed for a day at work. So in this pouch here, it's just from another bag. It's like a catch-all. I have, you know, eye drops, a mirror, tissues, lip balm, things of that nature, like Tylenol, that kind of stuff. Just so those little things aren't like floating around in the bag. Then I have both my reading glasses and my sunglasses. So those are both in the bag. Then I have my slim wallet here. So this one's nice because it fits in pretty much any small bag, but this one's big enough that that doesn't matter. Then I have my little purse umbrella. And then in this pocket, the small little pocket, I carry my phone. This is my old phone since I'm using my new phone to film, but this is an iPhone XR, and it's pretty much the same size as my iPhone 13 Pro. It's just a little bit thinner. Then I've got my AirPods case. And then in this pouch here, I have my keys. So that's pretty much everything that I put in the bag. There's still plenty of extra room in there if I wanted to put even more stuff. But I will say the more stuff that I put in it, the heavier it gets. So I don't think that I would want to carry much more than this. But yeah, it's definitely a good size for a work bag. It holds everything that I need. I do carry a separate tote to work that has my laptop, my lunch, and my shoes. But I do like also carrying a smaller bag with these kinds of things just in case I need to run out at lunch or something. I don't have to carry my gigantic tote bag with me. Now just to share 3 different outfits that I put together to style this bag. 2 of them are more work-oriented looks because as I said, that's how I would actually use the bag. And then I did style one a little bit more casually because some days, like let's say I had the bag packed for work and then on a Saturday, I just have to run out for a minute. And maybe I just don't feel like transferring all my stuff to a smaller bag, so I'll just grab the one that I already have. In that kind of scenario, that could easily happen. And so I did style a look that was a little bit more casual, a little bit more weekend with this bag as well. So in the first look, I have on my Loft lady jacket and a white shirt underneath and then a pair of black jeans. I think that that looks really elegant and polished for the workplace, and I think that the bag takes it up a notch and makes it look even better. I do think that the structured lady jacket with a bag like this does look very polished and sophisticated, so I think they're kind of a perfect match. For my second look, I went with more of a monochrome look. So I have on my gray any-day sweater and I wore a floral button-up shirt underneath just for a little bit of contrast peeking out. And then I had on my gray Paradise Patterns trousers. For me, this is a little bit more of a casual Friday kind of look, but again, the bag makes it a little bit more polished, a little bit more sophisticated, and I really like the way that those pair together as well. And then for my more casual weekend look, I had on an Amazon sweater that's very oversized. It's more of a tunic, and I put it on with my Green Style Creations flare leggings. And then I wore that with my black Doc Martens Oxfords. And I do really enjoy the contrast of this fancier, more professional looking bag with a little bit more of a relaxed loungewear kind of outfit, especially when the sangles are undone like this. I just think that that tension works really well together. You've got this, which is going to like class it up a little bit, but then you have the really loungy outfit. So while I probably would not wear that particular outfit to work, again, it would be fine on a weekend if I wanted to run out for a few hours and I just grabbed this. So I hope that you enjoyed this review. Don't forget you can get 30% off all kits at Babylon Leather right now, Plus, you can get an extra 5% off by using my discount code. If you do use my code, thank you so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments if you've ever made something like this before, or if you're interested in trying it out. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.